All right, guys, what's up? Welcome to episode 1 of The Muscle Galaxy. I'm your host, Hami Fakih, also known as TheMuscleJedi. I'm joined by Jason today. Jason, what do you go by? What's your Instagram, socials?
Just hash at Jason1 on Instagram, guys.
All right, Jason one with a zero, right?
Yeah, with a zero, because I was trying to put in
Okay.
my actual name is Wang Wang, but I tried to put that in, and then it was taken. The username was taken, so I had to
Yeah.
resort to something else.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been keeping touch for a while now. I think we connected. I think I followed you, you followed me. We seem to train a very similar way, from what I understand. What I call like our training style is like the science based that's actually done correctly. That's what I like evidence based more so. So like a mix of all the intelligent stuff but personal preference. From watching your videos, I can tell that all your movements tend to be very good movements, but you enjoy them too. It's not just because you think they're the best.
So yeah, honestly, it's a bit of like it's not even I don't even call it science evidence-based training. It's more so me head training, like intensity wise, but with like understanding of movements and also like the reason why we're doing things a certain way, the way we order exercises, etc. But on top of
Hmm.
just like effort, because no matter how good your setup is, no matter how like precise your movement is, like effort will have to sit on top of that, right? None of them matter if you're not applying effort to that.
Yeah, so my question is based on that. You bring up a great point because, yeah, I still don't like to fall under that science based word. But if you were to list like three, like how would you structure training in terms of what's the most important thing in a training program? Before we get into volume, before we get into exercise selection, or even if we get into those things, what's your number one important thing in training? What's number two? What's number three? And what does that look like for you and even people you coach?
Honestly, for me right now, number one would be to use the correct exercise order, right? Away from intensity, away from effort, those things. Exercise order sits on top for me right now, just because it helps so much in terms of applying your effort in the right area and also avoiding injury. Those two things are massive for me. So top is exercise selection, in the right order. For example, right now I have moved my leg extension before all of my compounds, and it's been helping so much with avoiding any of the small niggles and injuries I've had. And then after that, for me, it's exercise enjoyment for me. Like, I don't think you really have to enjoy the exercise to be able to run it for a very long time. You see people chopping and changing the program once a week, just trying out different things. It's because they cannot stick to an exercise they enjoy, right? So pick exercises you get on well with and you enjoy. For example, last year I had a run with an incline barbell. It's obviously not the most it's not the most optimal exercise on paper, right? But I enjoyed it
Yeah.
a lot, and it's a press at the end of the day. If you get stronger on it, if you increase your working load by 30%, your push musculature is gonna grow, right? And then lastly, with the programming, I think it's using the correct resistance. That this is definitely last for me. The two things I listed at the beginning was are like a lot more important.
Hmm.
But right now, we have
Hmm.
access to a lot of the good equipments. I think using them in the correct order is very important, right? You see people using a hammer strength chest press last exercise in the workout, and they get nothing out of it.
It's funny, man. You bring up incline barbell press, so you bring up a great point. Is that it? Something for an exercise doesn't necessarily have to be optimal,
Mhm.
but at the end of the day, if you progress an exercise, it is going to grow the musculature associated with it, assuming execution is in place.
Exactly.
Because on free weight movements, I think that's where execution is even more important. Let me ask you this thing. It's more about my scenario. So, dude, I tried running incline barbell press forever. Like I'm at Like on incline dumbbell, I'm almost at hundreds. On a 15-degree angle,
Mhm.
hundreds for four. Dude, I'm not even kidding. I can't even, like, no matter what I've done, my incline barbell press hasn't moved. It's always felt weird. But man, I love the exercise. But it just feels so weird. What's your advice? Like, is there something you recommend I look at?
for incline barbell,
Hmm.
right?
It just
Uh,
never moves, no matter what I've done.
no
It's
matter
so
moves in
strange.
terms of like progression, right? Like not getting reps, not getting.
Progression, like for example, like I can three plate press on a hammer strength incline. I can 100 pound dumbbell 15 degree. Um, I can on setting five. I can almost max a prime incline. But like I have this incline barbell press, which like doesn't go heavier than like 165.
In my opinion, first of all, it's have make sure you're like this goes obviously not just for incline barbell press. For this could be like for any other exercise, right? If it's not progressing,
Hmm.
all the other movements are progressing. First is to make sure to honestly film all of your sets, including some of your warm-ups, like the last warm-ups, and make sure that your execution is standardized from week to week, right? Because sometimes, let's say if I was in a diet phase, I'm losing body weight, and my execution on a press isn't good. I'm bouncing out of the length and range. You're only gonna have less momentum as you lose body weight because you're losing leverage. So that's why you're never gonna get strong, right? But whereas if when you begin to run the exercise, you give a pause in the hole, you pause in the length and range, and you remove that momentum and try to actually
Yeah,
tension on the muscle instead of bounce using the stretch reflex of the joints to bounce out of that length and range.
yeah,
Now you're
yeah,
properly into the muscle and you're not using any of the body weight to leverage it, right? And then now
yeah,
you can pop a 2.5 each side or even a 1 pound plate. You know, the mini plates. I have these mini plates in my bag. I pop these on. It doesn't feel like
yeah.
any progression. It doesn't feel like a weight increase, right? You match reps, and then on a good day you get a rep, right? And you just keep increasing.
That's Jordan Peter plates, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
another
No, man, you bring up awesome
thing,
points. No, you bring up awesome points, bro. 100%. You know, like one thing I standardize almost everything I do. But you bring up a great point because when I look back in time, I realize that it's actually free weight movements. Standardizing has to become a habit. And like one thing people like I've noticed in clients is always tell them like how you move before you adjust your form is the habit your body tends to stick to because our body wasn't necessarily built to our body was built to leverage, right? It wasn't necessarily built to contract a muscle a bit more than the other in an incline dumbbell press with a 2 second pause in length and range. You have to instill a habit. And I think with free weight exercises, it's much harder. So yeah, 100%. I do think that's the issue you mentioned.
yeah, especially freeway exercise, the path is very, you have a lot more freedom with the pressing path. So it's very easy to just
Yeah,
bounce it on your chest, right? I see a lot of people, not even on an incline barbell, even on a flat bench, they bounce the first 50% of the range of, right? And then when you dive phase, you lose 20 pounds. You don't have that same momentum. So that's why people are getting weak and they don't know why they're getting weak.
yeah, 100%. What did you work up to at the end of your incline barbell run?
So I only ever ran incline barbell second exercise after a dumbbell press.
Okay,
So I
okay.
got to top set 2 plates and a 5 for 6 or 7. So what
Yeah,
is
that's
that?
pretty crazy, bro.
Because I never
I've seen the way you lift, so that's very impressive given the execution.
because I never track my lifts in pounds. It's always plates per side. It's PPS. So that would be like what 35,
Yeah, 235.
35, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so okay, so we're talking about pressing now before we get into even more questions like and topics. What's your stance on I don't know if this is necessarily a debate. It's something I've always thought of. So because I'm a huge fan at pressing in the 60 to 75-degree angle
Hmm.
for delts,
Hmm.
and you get a good amount of upper pec if you
Right.
adjust your elbows slightly in.
Yep.
What's your stance on pressing in that 60 to 75-degree plane for side delts?
Honestly, so I've always done it like I would call these press like not overhead press. I would just call these high inclines, right? Even on a
Yeah, same.
we have this prime shoulder press at my gym. where the back pad is 90 degree, I would still angle myself to arch a little bit to get the same, to create the same
That's
angle
the plate loaded one, right?
at the plate loaded one. I would still like, even on
Dude,
like,
that's one of the best.
it's fantastic. I would still like try to arch a little bit to leverage to create the same angle as a high incline, 60 to 7 degrees, right? So like my opinion on how it affects the side delt, I think you should have both side delt, direct side delt work, and also overhead pressing work in high incline, right? Not in like 90 degree strict overhead press. Like meanwhile, like studies say that you should be doing a direct side delt work to hit the lateral head. I've never seen anyone with legit big shoulders that don't have a strong overhead press. That's my opinion.
Yeah,
So
that's so my main question was,
if
let's
you can,
say you have a sorry, continue.
oh, go ahead, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah. So my main question was, yeah, adding on to my previous question. So basically, you kind of answered it. Is let's say you're building a training program for someone and you have the side delt work. So you personally, anecdotally, either believe or observe that if you take out the presses in that angle, you are missing something.
Yeah, I do think that, right? I've never seen anyone with
Yeah,
a 3 plate press on a Smith press on a Smith machine with small side delt. It just doesn't happen, right? If you're able
yeah,
to do that much weight in that angle, you have to have big delt.
yeah, yeah, 100%. Man, do you know Costin Hansen?
Yeah, cause the coach custom.
Yeah, yeah.
Looking the same guy. Yeah,
So I did his biomechanics module,
yeah.
N1 biomechanics level 1. Dude, if you haven't done it, I couldn't recommend it more because like you have like the science of mechanics, but you have it put in one place
Hmm.
where like you can actually understand like how a press can actually hit the side delt, especially because you're running in an angle. You always will press. I don't know if you notice in the high incline, you're not really pressing straight up. You're kind of pressing slightly back,
Yeah, yeah,
and when you're pushing back into that delt,
yeah. Because
there's
your elbow is
definitely
more
something
tucked
going
in
on.
and having it on the side work
Yeah,
compared to
yeah.
1 degrees.
Yeah. You know what pumps up my side delts crazy, even though I've never ran them? Every time I do them just for fun, like a 10 rep set, behind the neck presses.
Oh yeah.
But like, I don't know. I don't have the mobility to hold that bottom position, so I don't want to risk hurting something.
Yeah, loading capability becomes an issue on that. But like honestly, I don't mind doing it once in a while just to with a
Yeah.
lighter weight at the end. I know that's not like fucking optimal, but like people like to. But I think it's like fun to do, honestly.
Yeah, man. The thing is, it's so interesting, right? Because there's so many things that you can implement into your training that aren't optimal, but they just work. And then when you look back at the word optimal, the people who are pushing this word the most,
Hmm.
like I follow a few, I'm not going to drop names because some of them are bigger names, but like you know that whole UK bodybuilding scene, right?
Right.
Like a lot of these guys constantly talking about their program, exercise variation, exercise selection, exercise order. They're just not growing. They
Yeah.
just haven't grown in the past
Only
two,
on
three
paper.
shows.
Yeah.
Sorry?
It's only on paper, never the results.
Yeah, the only guy, and this is why I'm a huge fan of him, is Jordan Peters because I like, man, if you just follow him, he has not changed many exercises
Yeah.
in the
3 hours.
past even year.
Yeah.
And that's where the best results come from, man, is from running the crap out of an exercise literally into the ground. Like
Mhm.
that's where results come from, is like sticking to an exercise, like not even just doing it like for example, if you have like three upper sessions, not even doing it upper A, I'm gonna do an incline dumbbell press. Like, bro, if that works for you, why don't you could even do it upper B as a second exercise rotation? Because like people forget, like exercise is a skill. You're developing a skill to produce force in that angle in that exercise, and you do that more over time. That is gonna contribute to more strength. And obviously leverage and certain things help, but when you standardize and add up all these things, it's just a complete game changer. Complete game changer.
Yeah. I don't know if you're signed up to the Train by JP site because
Yeah.
I've been a member since like 2 years ago. And like I watched his video from I watched JP's video from like 2017. It's always been the same exact exercises. I see him do like Smith high incline. He's been doing it for the last like 5 years. Kind of crazy.
Yeah, even one thing like I noticed myself is I was like kind of thinking about the stuff one day and I was looking at like certain areas of my physique and I'm sure maybe you've experienced this where the most developed areas of my physique, I coincidentally have happened to not change the exercises for the past even 2 years. Like the underhand hammer strength pull down, I've been doing that for more than 2 years now. My lats are easily my best body part. I've been doing stiff leg or RDL variations for over 2 years now, and my it shows in my hamstrings, in my erectors, in my traps. I've never done shrugs in my life. It's all from laterals and
Exactly.
running a machine and deadlifts and stuff. So usually the most developed areas of your physique will simply come from consistency and like not even in the cliche motivation way, like just consistency as in you have a predictable system. You just do the same exercise, you get better at it. Like the way I used to do the hammer strength underhand pull down 2 years ago is completely different than the way I do it now. But it's the same exercise and I get a lot more out of it now.
Yeah. For me, it's the pendulum, the Atlantis pendulum specifically.
Yeah, that's the
Any
best, man.
at any gym I've trained at since I started training back in 2020 has had this same machine, right? So I was
Mm-hmm.
able to do this machine for the last 5 years. I think this is the only
Yeah.
pattern I've ever only done so for so long. Like the last 4 or 5 years, I've only done Atlantis pendulum.
Yeah, that's dude, that machine is like, man, have you ever, they for some reason they call them hack squats, but it's like the V squat, you know which one I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah.
So our rec center just got the Atlantis version of that, but I do it the other way. Like
Mhm.
hold like and dude, the
So
resistance is so
facing,
similar
facing
to
the machine, right? Yeah,
facing the machine.
yeah.
And the resistance is just like a pendulum where it drops off a bit in the bottom.
Mhm.
And it's like there's something about squat movements that when they drop off just a tiny bit in the bottom,
Yeah.
you can just get so much more out of the set.
I think compared to like a hack squat, anything that moves in a pendulum allow you to like obviously get more knee flexion because it's in a curve. It pushes your knee forward, and also you're a
Yeah.
lot more comfortable in that length and range, right? Hack squat when you stay in that range for too long with like if you're consistently progressing with the weight, your knee's gonna hurt at some point.
Have you ever tried the Cybex hack squat?
Yeah, we have one of that at our gym, but I've done it like here and there in the past.
Dude, nothing hurts my knees more, and I have perfectly healthy knees.
Yeah,
Without the weights, it destroys my knees. And like, I know people can do 4.5 on those, like standardized, and it's just like, man, like some exercises, they just hurt, dude. Like, one thing, that's a big reason, I'm a big fan of doing like on leg press, I do sissy pressing
hmm
on the hammer strength, and then I move it back to like a 30-degree angle. And I do sissy because it just feels a bit better on my knees because I have that tiny bit of calf working. But man, the best thing about pendulum too is it brings you in that bottom range. You can also prevent a lot of butt wink because it's more of
yeah,
a natural movement.
exactly. I
Because
think
hack squats and
on
leg press
high
is
spots,
very easy.
yeah, people tend to like press their back flat against the platform, so when they're grinding, their lower back comes off, and that's like what usually hurts a lot.
Yeah, and some people, you have a tiny bit of lower back coming out at the bottom.
Yeah,
When you do that for 10, 12 reps, bringing it back, you're turning it into like a lengthened partial erector exercise.
exactly.
And on top of that, like you're compressing the most vulnerable part of your spine, which is the lower spine.
Yeah, and top on top
And
of that,
like that,
be heavy in that bottom range.
yeah, I mean, yeah, man. So okay, a few topics I want to get into. So like, man, like I mean, this is all things bodybuilding. So who are your favorite bodybuilders?
Favorite bodybuilders, competitive
Yeah.
or not?
Sorry?
Do they have to be like a pro, or do they have to be like super competitive or not, or just in general?
Okay. Name me like whoever you want, but and then from the bodybuilding Hall of Fame, who's your favorite? Or
Body.
drop as many names as you want.
I'm gonna start with enhanced side because I'll leave the natural bodybuilders later because I also follow a bunch of them. I don't just
Yeah, me too.
follow the pros, right? The IFBB pros. Uh, at the moment, I like Martin Fitzwater a lot.
Dude, he has such a complete physique.
Yeah,
Like he reminds me of the 90s a lot.
he has like very good proportion while like have like those freakish body parts, right? Whereas like a lot of
Yeah.
people talk about being balanced, he has good structure and also like standout body parts, which is insane.
Yeah. Um out of all the Mr. Olympias in open, who's your favorite?
I'm gonna say honestly, Big Ramy.
Yeah. Yeah, man. People forget how good that guy is.
People only knew about him. I think the majority of the people only knew about him in after 2020, after he won his first Mr. Olympia. But like
Mm-hmm.
my favorite version of him was probably from 2015 to like 2018 when he was like going up against Phil Heath.
Was this when he was with Chad?
Yeah, yeah.
Chad, yeah, he was so shredded then.
He was getting beat by Phil Heath every time, but he was so insane back then.
Yeah, but man, but when he won the first Olympia, it was, bro, he dominated that show. It wasn't even close. Like I've always loved his physique. I love the freak factor, but people forget how aesthetic he is too. Like
In his prime,
he's like a yeah.
yeah, when he won his first Mr. Olympia, he was already on the decline, in my opinion. But his prime was honestly, search him up later on YouTube. It's 2015. I think it's 2015 Euro Pro. He was so insane.
Yeah, he kind of reminds me like I don't know, like one of my favorite bodybuilders was Paul Dillette.
Mhm. Yeah, 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 yeah. It's
Yeah, like he has the
that
same
guy,
like
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
super tall, crazy physique. Dude, yeah, but so yeah, Martin Fitzwater is cool. What do you think about Mike Sommerfeld?
Mike Sommerfeld. I watched him back in 2021 when he got his eighth place, I think. And
Mm-hmm.
I knew he had the structure to be like very good.
Yeah,
But right now, in my opinion, he's almost like filling his frame a little bit too much, getting to a point where he looked
he
more like
looks like an open guy, dude.
yeah,
He
like a
looks like a
well,
small open guy.
yeah, yeah. But what,
I like, man. I think Terrence is gonna do a very good job this year if he
yeah,
comes back properly.
yeah. When he last time when he did his last Olympia, he had what 10 pounds of tissue to fill for his cap.
Yeah,
Yeah, something like that. I think he just got to fill it out, especially being a shorter guy.
yeah,
You have to be like completely filled out to like compete with the bigger guys.
yeah. I noticed Classic is going in this very like tall man sport direction.
Mhm.
It's like 5'2" seems to be a sweet spot for
Yeah.
a lot of these guys, and it's like, man, like I'm not the tallest dude. Like I'm not short, but like I like Classic the most. So if I ever do it, I hope it doesn't stay that way.
Honestly, for smaller guys, the structure matter even more. You have to like the muscle has to go to the right area if you're when you're on the shorter side. Whereas the taller guys, they kind of get away with it having the larger frame. If they hit their poses correctly, they can get away with like not having the best structure. If you look at Wesley, right? Wesley versus Terrence. Wesley's structure is nowhere near Terrence or Mike Summerfield's structure. But Wesley just looks can stand in the same line because he's so much bigger.
Yeah, 100%. I do think though that like, cause like people always, do you know Victor Black?
I've heard of him, yeah.
Yeah, he did a seminar at Dungeon. Oh, I couldn't go to it, but I'm a big fan of his, and he like,
He's the guy who
man,
with
like people
Black Method, right? Or something like that with the
safe use models.
yeah. That's the one I've heard of.
Yeah, yeah. He's so legit, man, and basically like he always goes back to the point that like, oh, genetics is the most important thing, and it's like I do think that's important, but I think the most important part about genetics is like, because you always hear about like how Kevin Levrone would like go 6 months off, come back on, and all this stuff, and people talk about genetics. to me, the main thing in genetics, and I've noticed this in myself and certain physiques, like especially you see this natural bodybuilding really brings this out. It's structure, man. Structure is the most important thing in bodybuilding. If you have structure that, for example, if you have a certain type of structure where you look super wide, but you have like the small pelvis, like if you put on 5 pounds, it looks like you put on 10.
Yeah. And
And it's
honestly,
just the levels of muscularity just completely differ visually.
yeah, and honestly, you get exposed a lot more with structure when you're natty because no one is gonna have this filled out frame, so everyone's gonna be shredded. And when you're
Mm.
at that point, your structure, if you look at a line of people, you either have it or you don't. When you're 130 pounds, right? Those with elite genetics can make 130 pounds look like 180. Yeah, the guy, the WMBF heavyweight.
Yeah, he just stepped up though. Like he just stopped
When
competing naturally. He just started taking gear. But
his coach trains in my gym.
really,
Yeah, the Vincent Dutility guy. I see him a lot.
yeah, Samuel's my favorite natty right now. Like
Yeah,
at least when he was
not
like
right now,
he
not
has
anymore.
crazy structure.
Yeah,
Yeah, but who do you follow from the natty scene a lot?
natty guys. If I watch in terms of like actual competitive natties, that guy, the middleweight champion at WMBF Worlds this year, it's that black guy. I forgot his name. It's you know what I'm talking about, right?
Kind of short.
Yeah, kind of short, and he's a IVP pro. Let me search
I
up
need
his.
a name, but have you heard of that kid, the Brinks?
Yeah, I've heard of him. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he turned IFBB pro too.
Yeah, but this guy is like on a completely different level. I think the guy I was talking about, the black guy, he went to New York Pro and came in top 15 or top 10.
I think I know who you're talking about. Does he have like crazy, crazy arms?
Yeah, he's from Spain.
Oh,
I can find his name right now. Just gotta find
find his name, yeah. But
his name is like
yeah,
super hard to pronounce, so I just can't do it on the spot. Here, just give me 1 second. You can keep talking though.
you know Shay Leon?
Is it that
He
Chinese guy?
plays top. No, he's South African. He plays top six at last year's Universe Heavyweight. He goes to Dungeon. He just started taking gear, but like, dude, that guy's physique is better than most people I know who are on gear.
Hold up, I'm just pulling up his name right now. He's the middleweight champion, and he's the the overall champion for Worlds for the last like 2 years.
What's his name?
Yeah, I'm just looking for that right now. Annoying. It's Niem Baba Bakar. Yeah, that's the one.
How do you spell it?
Niang. It should pop up immediately.
N Baba?
Babakar. Bacar.
Wait, Niamg.
Yeah, Niang dot Babacar.
Okay, holy shit.
Ridiculous. 3 times WMBF world champ.
Yeah, this is like a future Mr. Olympia if
If he,
he takes
I'm pretty sure
gear.
he's like fairly, he's
Yeah,
probably in
this
his
is like
30s or maybe 40s at this point.
beautiful physique too, not just muscular.
Yeah,
Like good structure.
same structure as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, man. It's man, like I mean obviously these guys are the top 10 top 1%, but like I always say like people really don't understand like if you actually like dial in and you really nail all your variables for years, you'd be surprised how far you can take the body naturally, man. You'd really be surprised. Like I always say this to people, like there's a reason there are hundreds of amazing naturals out there. They're all super serious and hardworking people.
I feel like it's even a like higher ceiling than a lot of the enhanced guys. Because for natties, you can train for years and before you actually hit your like, peak, right? If you avoid getting injured and you train for years and you actually train smart, I feel like a lot of the natties peak in their 30s slash 40s. I see a lot of them
Yeah,
be very competitive in their 30s.
yeah. I mean, bro, it's funny when you bring up injuries because that was one of the topics I want to ask. So basically, like when it comes to injuries, right? So I remember you had a lower back thing or whatever. So
Right. Yeah.
you're the perfect person to ask. So how do you work around injuries?
So like I'm honestly pretty lucky. I've only ever had the only like bad-ish injury is that lower back like disc injury. And then
Mhm.
I also had some small issue with my soleus and also my right shoulder, but these are like more on the minor side, right? But I think I'm pretty sure the honestly, first thing is to find out what caused the injury before you even move on to the rehabbing, right? Because I think my injury came from very high hinging frequency. Earlier, 2024, spring 2024, at one point I was hip hinging 3 times a week. Right?
Yeah, that's
I will have
man.
barbell
Yeah,
row.
that's a lot.
I will have barbell row in one session, and then the next day on lower, I will have a high rep RDO at the very end, right? So this way to make it not like impact a little bit less because one of them is like on the slightly higher rep side. But honestly, that still took a toll on me. Like the fatigue just drove up so high. Like I honestly hate to talk about like fatigue management and stuff. But when you're hip hinging 3 times a week and also progressing and you're not weak at the same time, it's very easy for your lower back to pick up like fatigue. And then I think eventually it just snapped on a one day when I was doing a RDL. And then what happened after that? Like that was definitely my fault, but I kept training through it. I was trying to figure out ways I can train around the injury. And then I eventually heard it a couple more times on the leg press. You know, the like the bottom position where your lower back sometimes roll up a little bit.
Yeah, so when you say like it was a disc thing, like do you know this for a fact or it felt like
Yeah,
it?
I
Like tell me
slipped a
more.
disc for sure.
Dude, yeah, I had like a minor I had like slightly ruptured QL from golf a few years ago, and as a consequence of that, it impacted my discs. It's a very like it doesn't hurt all the time, but when it does, it's like a bone pinch. It's like a very unique type of pain.
I think after that after that I re-injured. The bad part was me re-injuring the same spot multiple times, right? And every time
Mm.
it's been on RDL. So I was doing 180 pound dumbbell RDL for like a lower upset, and then I just heard a snap, and then I just couldn't walk after.
Ah, man.
Yeah.
Was it sound loud? Or it's
No,
very
but
like,
I felt like a pop in my back when I was doing the sec, and I was like
yeah,
aware to stop it immediately. And then
yeah.
I still like it's still like impacting me to this day. Like it's not hurting anymore, but I would whenever I sit down in my whenever I'm driving or just sitting on my table, I will have like a cushion at my lower back to like hold against it, so I wouldn't put the pressure on my lower back.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed is like, yeah, really gauging that fatigue development's important, but for example, I'm doing deficit RDLs with a crazy emphasis on bracing my lower back
Yeah,
by
yeah,
like
that's
kind of holding that arch. And I think potentially learning to tolerate even more extreme ranges of motion are very good for injury prevention, assuming your execution is good and that area hasn't been injured before.
yeah. And honestly, too, I for my hip hinge since then, I stopped attempting a barbell RDL. I just stopped doing it like once for all. I still do a dumbbell RDL right now, but it's a higher, slightly in the higher rep range, like a 10 to 12, and I would work up the reps first before I increase the weight. And then the other hip hinge I load up. That this is the one where I trust myself to go slightly heavier. It's the weighted hyperextension. I do it with the barbell, and then I load it up.
Yeah, there's very good bracing on that, and there's a slight drop off in the bottom, which is good.
Yeah,
So,
and
because it's
it's
very
not.
hard in the mid range.
Yeah, it's pressuring against my pelvis and not my lower back. That's the thing that's huge for me, and I'm still getting very good stimulus from my lower back out of it as well. So it just kind of worked both ways. But honestly, to prevent injury, to like work around it, first thing is to find out what's hurting it and just remove it for until it heals at least. And then in the meantime, I would say like hip hinge. I did not need hip hinge to have a good lower back or a good hamstring, right? You can find other ways to work your hamstring. It's not like a bicep curl where it's directly impacting the muscle. I increased my frequency for my hamstring curls, more volume, more sets, and also for my lower back, I resorted to like a pendulate row, where it's like a super strict form and minimum lower back movement.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so like I noticed you ran or are still running, I'm not sure, the prime lying leg curl for a while.
I still do it. Yeah, it's in one of my sessions.
So are you team lying leg curl or team seated leg curl?
I do both.
I only do seated. I do seated leg curl and RDO.
So
I personally have never been a fan of seated, I mean lying leg curl unless it's prime or flex.
I've never actually used the flex one. I heard it's good though. It's very heavy in the length and range.
Oof, super, but it's so nice.
Yeah. So my theory with that, or the reason I programmed that in my lower session, is that it takes away from your lower back. It almost decompresses your lower back. So on the
Yeah,
session
yeah, yeah.
on the sessions I have my lying hamstring in, it's before I in one session it's before I do my RDL, in the other session it's before I do my squat pattern. So both of these sessions require a good bit of like lower back like loading, right? So I try to avoid putting too much pressure on my lower back and my glute, and also given my injury history, like on top of that.
Yeah, yeah. It's super important to base exercise selection not just on your goal, but also on what you can tolerate, patterns you previously observed. Like for me, I've just noticed if I overdo anything tricep work,
Hmm.
my elbows get very beat because I'm a free weight skull crusher guy. I love those, but like I've adding in a bit of variation has really helped my elbows, to be honest. And I don't necessarily have bad elbows, but I don't want to ever feel it being bothered because then that can build up. So yeah, man, injury prevention, serious thing. And I always tell people like as a natural, you should almost never be injured because you one thing I like about natural bodybuilding, bro, is it's like in a weird way it's about perfection, right? Because you don't have something else helping you.
You don't have other variables to help you. You don't have BPCs. You don't have things peptides like that. It's just on your own programming and your own recovery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, man, it's super important. So I want to ask you like when, for example, you are doing a new program and you want to pick an exercise, how do you know that a given exercise is right for you and that it should be used for a long period of time? Because, like, for example, for me, there are a lot of exercises I like, but like, I can't do a decline cable press. I'm gonna get like, I'm gonna max out the machine within 2 months, and like, it's not sustainable over a long period of time, right? So, like, what's like the areas of criteria that help you determine an exercise is right for you and that you want to run it for a long time?
Honestly, number one is definitely loading capability if you want to have it in the long run. So let's use the best example would be like a standing rope pullover, right? It's probably a lot of
Yeah.
people's favorite exercise just because of the sensation you get. But if you want to evaluate between a rope pullover or a seated single arm D handle pull down, the D-handle pull down is always going to be superior because you can load that so heavy. You can put a gym pad on it. Whereas a row pullover, first of all, it's very hard to increase the weight each week and keep the same quality because you're in a unstable environment. And the second is that how long can you run the row pullover for? If you keep getting stronger, at some point the weight you use will be heavier than your body weight. Then at that point, what do you even do?
Also, people forget whenever you're doing cable exercises, the reason I'm not the biggest fan of cable exercises, like all these isolations, like even like let's say something like a single arm tricep push down
Right.
or a rope pullover. It's like unless you're tracking it, you're changing the leverage quite a bit every week.
Yeah.
Some people progress on low pullover just by standing closer. So yeah, and like even mechanically, for the total distance traveled, you're gonna get way more lats out of a pull down than a pullover, regardless of the variation of pull down. Because a pull, like the main thing the lat does is it brings the humerus down
Yep.
and slightly depresses the scapula. And like you're only doing that very slightly in a pullover. The reason I think it is you made a great point, is sensation. And I think one of the best things people can do for their training is to detach from this quest for sensation. Because
Exactly.
if you enjoy a movement and you stick with it long enough, sensation will come back.
Hmm.
But if you pick a movement because of sensation, if sensation was a thing, like, let's be real, we'd all do this dumbbell press
Standing
where you're
cable fly
pressing
every
together.
single day.
Yeah, and it's like, I do 0 flies in my program. My pecs are the best they've ever been.
Yeah, me neither. I don't have room
Yeah,
for fluff work right now in my upper lower sessions. It has to be
yeah,
pressed.
like, even like, man, my arms have been growing like crazy. I just think it's from the crazy pressing and pulling volume and being very meticulous with my direct work for biceps and triceps. And again, it all goes back to enjoyment. Like, for biceps, I like an incline dumbbell curl and I like a preacher machine. Almost anything else, I, to be honest, don't like at all or can't stand. Triceps, cuff pushdowns, 15-degree dumbbell skull crushers. These two, like, and then you're gonna get other regions of tricep per se just from your presses and whatnot. But yeah, like, yeah, it's super important. I mean, it all ties down to like, a lot of the times what you enjoy is gonna stick around for long term. And me personally, I found that if I find a good machine, man, it's hard to convince me otherwise, to be honest.
Exactly. It's honestly about finding a balance between enjoyment and also like if it makes sense or not, right? You have to think about whether doing a standing
Mhm.
cable fly is the best decision for your program or not. Because if even though it feels good, you're not going to be able to get stronger on that, and that's the driver for gaining more muscle.
Has there ever been an exercise that you really enjoyed, but you just had to stop besides the RDL? Because I assume you like that a lot.
I did like the barbell cardio, but not in a sense that I like the movement. It's more because I find it challenging. I like to be strong on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think for in my opinion, the hammer strength incline, I do it
yeah,
probably 3 times a year. I want to be doing it 3 to 5 times a year just to test out how much I can do because it's a hard movement, right? You don't see a lot of people pressing
yeah.
on that. I like to get to that point pretty soon. But honestly, it's not a great movement if you do it weekly in your program.
It's so heavy in the short, dude.
Yeah,
It's
you
so
absolutely
heavy.
have to do it at the very beginning, and even then, if when
Yeah,
you're taking like a low rep set, it's gonna be more triceps than chest at some point.
yeah. What's very interesting is the relationship of mechanics and resistance profile. Because technically for chest, mechanically it's not the worst, but it's the resistance that can bias. I'm starting to speculate that especially the way training is going, resistance profile, it's one of those things that matters more when you get serious. I don't think beginners should care about this stuff. I think
Definitely,
beginners should just get strong at a Smith
if
in
you're
all
pressing
angles,
one
to be
plate on
honest.
every machine, it doesn't matter what you do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but man, like, it's very interesting. Like, for example, I really like chest work that, like, my favorite hammer strength, one of my favorite pressing machines is the decline hammer strength.
Hmm.
Because it actually picks up a bit more in the mid position, middle range.
You anger yourself a
And
bit
it,
back. Yeah.
yeah, and like, have you ever tried the Nautilus slight decline, the explode press?
Yeah, the one that has like a
Yeah,
cross. The yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
So for example, the hammer incline, you're pressing up, but you're bracing this way.
Hmm.
So it's not like a direct brace. Whereas on the decline, you're pressing here and you're actually bracing in a similar direction. So even though the resistance profile is slightly different, you can just transition into producing a lot more force easier from the start to the end of the rep. And bro, that like end contraction is just so nice, man. Like, and I'm a huge fan of decline presses, to be honest, because mechanically it's very good for your whole pec, not just your costal.
Yeah. What's underrated for me from Hammer Strength is actually their old pin loaded machines. Have you tried the Hammer Strength pin loaded overhead press? The one with the spinning handles?
Dude, yeah,
So
that
good.
one's a good one.
Yeah. It's
Have
just
you
a
ever
light,
tried a?
but it's
It's
fantastic.
not. It's not a converging one, but it's a Life Fitness pin loaded one. shoulder press,
The
but
newer
but it's like it doesn't have the neutral grip. It's just one grip and it's slightly like angled.
the old Life Fitness, right?
Yeah.
The older line, yeah, that one's good.
Yeah.
Also, make this flat press with the foot pad that can get you to the starting position. That one's also really good.
Yeah, yeah. Um Man, Life Fitness has some good pieces, dude, to be
Oh,
honest with you. It's just
yeah.
yeah. Man, like have you heard about Oxygen, the gym in Dubai they just
One
opened?
that just opened up. Yeah, I've heard of that.
So they
Yeah.
have 900 machines and it's like 2 floors. They just have like a lot of hammer strength and a lot of different stuff, but like not much prime. Maybe 2 prime pieces in the whole gym. Basically zero Atlantis, no Cybex, whatever. I love the Cybex leg curl. I don't know if you've tried it. It's amazing, man. Yeah.
Honestly, this is the one of the good things about Starbucks. Every generation of of the same machine is like very good. I like Starbucks and also the newer ones, the Egos, the
Yeah.
VR.
Man, like even I mean to be honest, man, the only difference between all these machines I found is better bracing, comfortability, and
Mhm.
resistance profile.
Yeah.
That to me just determines a good machine. Cause like there are definitely a lot of unbranded machines that are probably good that we haven't tried. Have you ever tried? Oh yeah, you ran it. I think the pendulum lat row.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
That's like
Rogers, right? Rogers.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That is like one of the best pieces ever made.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah.
And the Nautilus pull down. I
Mhm.
love that machine.
Yep.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean when okay, so when it comes to training, what's your thought on like the whole I think it's chilled out a bit, the whole like Renaissance periodization, Dr. Mike, but like what's your whole thought on like the whole full ROM supremacy mindset some people tend to have?
So, see, this is like it's not. I could not say it whether it's bad or good. It's not like a very straightforward opinion because I agree to it in some parts, and also you also see some like 70 pound guy with no muscle doing one plate on a leg press in in 5 years and makes and he makes no progress. Right? Definitely seen Mike Israel used to post lift of the month on his story. It's always the
Yeah,
guy,
it was called Technique Cyborg.
yeah, half a play on the Smith squad with like insane ROM and just zero muscle.
Yeah.
So, so my
Yeah.
opinion is that you should be able on a exercise like a leg press or a squat pattern. You should try to get as much ROM as you can, and while loading the exercise up. Right here's the important part: while loading the exercise up in the long run. If you're able to do have insane ROM, but you cannot load it up, then that's an issue. But also, if you're cutting the ROM, cutting the talking ROM to put more weight on, that's also an issue because when you're not challenging yourself in those extreme ranges, that's just a safety hazard for future. And if your knees never get to the full knee flexion, then at some point in the future, when you do get to that knee flexion with significantly more weight, your knee's gonna shatter.
Most people get injured in the eccentric. Almost every injury occurs in the eccentric. So that's why it's super important to tolerate those lengthened ranges and also control the eccentric. I think controlling the eccentric is not necessarily a muscle growth thing. I think controlling the eccentric in general is more injury prevention, standardization, and awareness. I think
Yeah,
that's the most important thing of controlling the eccentric. Like, because like scientifically, it has been disproven that the eccentric is like way more efficient. But I will say, when I don't control my eccentrics, my workouts don't feel as good.
yeah. My
Like once upon a time ago,
The
yeah.
way I think of it is I don't even try to think about controlling my eccentric because I have a decent habit of keeping it pretty controlled already. I think about controlling my changes in direction. That's the key
So
part.
walk me through what that looks like.
So changes in direction will be like when you are doing a chest press, right? You're not using the stretch reflex of your shoulder tendon to bounce out of the hole. You're actually controlling it into the hole and using the muscle to drive it up. You're not bouncing it. And same thing on a squat pattern. You see a lot of people just bouncing on their calves, right? It's an easy way to get out of it because that's the range that's the most challenging. But if you really want to see like a good result, you have to spend time in the range that's challenging the most, challenge you the most, right? And also keeping your avoiding bouncing out of the hole. Also, just avoid 90% of the knee injuries because you would never get injured while locked out at the top, right? Unless some like insane thing just happened. It's always in that bottom range, bounce out of it, and your knee cannot handle the pressure.
Yeah, 100%. 100. I couldn't agree with you more.
And
Especially
to add on
like,
to that, right, you can control the eccentric all you want, but if you bounce at the bottom, controlled eccentric does nothing.
yeah, you know where I really feel change in direction control is like in dumbbell presses. That's where I really like it. I feel like because in a machine, like you can be fairly straightforward about execution, but dumbbell press, like there is a difference when you're at the bottom of an incline and you press straight up versus pause and press up and slightly back. There is a big difference I've noticed. And have you ever tried the hammer strength low row, like the upper back one?
The one that's like angled downward, right? With the chest
So
support.
it starts down and you pull it up. It's
I've
similar to
used
like
it.
the prime row. Have you ever tried it?
Yeah, I've used it, yeah.
It's pretty heavy in the short as well.
Mhm.
I love that movement though. Based on your experience, how would you adjust it to make it a bit more even?
So one simple way, I don't know if you pay attention to Nick Glove.
I used to follow him.
He stopped posting 2 years ago.
Nick Glo- Yeah, what's his story?
Uh, I do not know, but he just stopped posting for 2 years and he recently just started posting again, but he never stopped training. So if you scroll all the way back to like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, he used to do this movement on the hammer strength low row where he takes one handle of the low row and change it into a single arm row, right? You're still biasing the upper back, but you're stepping back now. You're stepping back and using that the seat as a support. So you're moving the entire exercise back. So now when at the starting position, you're already past the mid range, and now it becomes a almost a lengthened bias upper back row.
Yeah, okay, awesome. I'll check it out. Thanks for that. But okay,
Any of
so
honestly, any
let's
of go ahead.
yeah, no, continue, please.
Any of the hammer strength row or pull down machines, you can easily just adjust it by taking a step back.
Yeah, you know their normal like it's like the horizontal row. If you step back, it kind of turns into like that pendulum row where it's like it
Really
has
good.
a depressive nature
Yeah.
when you pull. But yeah, I mean, no man, that's awesome. So I want to talk about like more okay, so let's talk about like bulking, right? So what system do you enforce on yourself and clients for a successful bulking phase? Like, what is the recipe you find for successful bulk where, let's say, in 6 months, someone gains 40 pounds and a lot of that is muscle? What determines that for you? What is that system built of?
So first of all is to keep the structure of your meals very, very tight. Obviously, allow for off-plan meals here and there. Like go and have it, doesn't matter. This is all under a very good structure. If you can keep your meal structure very, very tidy, it really doesn't matter how many like off-plan meals you have here and there because you're already in a surplus. But the main thing is to keep that structure so you're not constantly subbing things out in and out and also missing meals here and there. If you can keep a structure of having 100 carbs pre and post training and stays that way for 6 months, then if the overall structure is there, it's very hard to like not see good result. Structure, especially in off season, you won't really be able to see any physique changes, right? If anything, your physique is getting worse when you're natty. Like you never really look better as the bulk goes on, right? That's when your goal shifts from looking at the physique to performance in the gym, right? And having a good structure, whether it's food, if you keep meal timing the same and have your majority of the carbs around training, and also structure when it comes to recovery, sleeping at the same time every day, you're maximizing your performance. I am when the food gets really, really high.
What's the highest you've ever eaten, out of curiosity?
650 carbs, 250 protein, 70 fat. Training day.
What's that, like 4,000?
Probably close to 4.5.
650. Oh, okay. Dude, I did 1,000 peak bulk, 1,000 carb, 170 protein, 90-gram fat.
Yeah. Yeah, that's brutal, man.
It was nuts. Like, it was nuts. Like, 4 Pop Tarts every morning. Like,
A bunch of fruit juice as well, eh?
yeah, fruit juice.
Fruit juice.
I found this thing in Walmart. It's like a desi food. It's a lassi. It's like a probiotic yogurt drink, and it was mango flavored. And I would have this with my bigger meals because it would be so good for digestion, man. But man, one of the biggest things is I haven't had too many problems with this with clients, but I think the more advanced you get, the more important digestion comes to, because digestion isn't necessarily bad reaction to food. It's
Hmm.
how long does that actually take for you to absorb the food? Because in a bulk, you want that to be as short as possible.
Yeah. So you're asking me how would I like maximize or optimize digestion, right?
Yeah, honestly, more so, what have you done? Like, I've seen you. I remember once you told me or you sent me something where clients were taking like digestive enzymes. So I assume you do that yourself too.
I don't.
You
I
don't.
actually don't any. I don't take any supplement for my digestion.
Yeah.
Number one thing I would say is to eat the food that sits well. Do not force yourself to eat the food that doesn't sit well. For me, the biggest thing is oats and cream of rice. I am not eating those right now. I think a lot of people think of these two as like bodybuilding foods and they try to force it down whether they like it or not. But if it doesn't sit well, it doesn't sit well. Especially cream of rice. What I notice is that a lot of people tend to undercook it because people think rice flour just cook a lot faster than rice. So once the rice is undercooked, it tends to sit in your stomach forever, and then it's never good because it just expands.
What One of the biggest things people also forget about the oats and cream of rice and cream of wheat is you're not chewing the food. When
Yeah,
you chew food, you're releasing that salivary amylase and you're
yeah,
breaking down the carbohydrate before you even swallow it down. That
yeah.
can make a big difference. Also, what is in cream of rice? Water, a
Mhm.
lot of water, and it basically volumizes the food. That's why it's great for cutting, right? When you're
Yeah,
cutting, you have such an
you can
empty stomach
expand
that you
it.
probably tolerate it a bit better. But for example, you wouldn't have white rice and 3 cups of water. But when you're having cream of rice, you're doing that. And on top of that, you're not even chewing it.
Exactly. And also, like this is the same reason I avoid drinking water 20 minutes before and after my all of my big meals.
When do you cut water before bed?
I don't wake up no matter how much drink water I drink, so I probably an hour ish. I drink to my like thirst level, so I don't really stop because I'm going to bed.
Mm-hmm.
Because I never wake up. It doesn't really impact my sleep at all.
And what about for food?
For food, I would stop drinking water 20 minutes before and 20 minutes after, unless it's like a soup, which I could just can't avoid.
And when do you cut food before bed?
There's no limit for me because it doesn't impact my sleep either. I actually like sleep
Wow.
better. I sleep better with carbs in my system compared to without.
Yeah.
Because when you're like when you go to bed hungry, especially when you're in a
Yeah.
diet, you wake up because you're hungry.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, man. I mean, how do you structure like what are your sources of fats during your diet? Are you someone who you actually track what sources of fat you take? Do you focus on having healthier fats, or is fat just another macro that you fill? What is it to you?
Yeah, I definitely think I like definitely see a difference when I'm taking like high quality fats instead of just fat from let's say sauces or ground beef, those saturated fats. I prefer fat. Number one fat source for me right now is dark chocolate.
Yeah, it's so good, dude.
So good.
It's so good.
Because all the protein I eat tends to be on the leaner side. Right now I'm eating chicken breast. Obviously, like chicken breast stays in year round, and also a top sirloin steak. Right, it's a very lean cut, so it doesn't have much fat in it. So
Do
this
do you have fish as well or no?
I don't. I if I have to have like a seafood, it would be like shrimp, right? If I choose uh like a fish that I actually enjoy, it would be like salmon.
I love fish, dude. I
Yeah.
feel amazing when I eat it.
The
Salmon,
reason why I
cod.
can't avoid fish is that I enjoy fish as like a food on the side that I enjoy and not like a bodybuilding food.
Aha, okay,
Like if I
interesting.
keep eating those tilapias, it's gonna ruin my ruin the image of fish in my head.
I can't eat chicken breast anymore because my first year of training, I had chicken breast twice a day, every day. I literally can't eat it.
Yeah,
Like it makes me want to throw up.
yeah. That this was me with ground beef because I used to eat ground beef and eggs for 2 years straight. That was my only protein source because I didn't know anything about nutrition back then.
Yeah, no, no, man. I
I
hear
would get
you.
like a bad feeling when I look at a burger right now because of that.
So let me ask you, in terms of nutrition, for what beliefs have you had really change over the years? More so in your more advanced levels of knowledge.
Yeah, so this year, I think one of the biggest thing I've learned is that to actually eat to your needs and not just adding more food because 800 carbs sounds cool. You're
Yeah.
flexing to everyone you're eating 800 carbs. I think earning the right to get there, to get to 800 carbs is more important than just eating 800 carbs every single day, smashing it down, right? Whether you need it, if you are 150 pounds and you don't have much muscle, you don't have the right to be eating 900 carbs. You have to actually have the performance level high enough and also the amount of tissue high enough to be eating that level of carbs. I think eating two is very big.
Yeah, one thing I do with protein, I want your take on this. So when I track protein intake, I'm tracking direct sources. So direct sources of protein to me are animal sources, but I do exclude like Greek yogurt and cottage cheese from that. To me, it's just fish, chicken, eggs, whey.
Yeah. I also track my when I put my food in the food tracker every day, I track my direct protein source first because in my opinion, trace protein
Yeah.
doesn't do the same thing for you.
No, it's just not a complete amino acid, not as
It don't really
bioavailable.
absorb at all. It's just there.
Doesn't always fully digest, by the way, because of high fiber amounts. Yeah, so I mean, list goes on. Which beliefs about training have changed for you a lot?
Also very similar to my food take. I think training to your needs and also earn the right to be doing the things you're doing. Because I used to be like this maybe a year or two back, like pressing 10, 11 plates and not really focusing on my execution, which was honestly wasn't a bad thing back then because I was chasing low progression every single day. So I just got really strong, right? But at this point, where if I try to do the same thing, I'm exposing myself to like very high risk of injury. I think it's very important to train to
Mhm.
earn the right to be doing that much weight, right? If you do not have, if you're like pressing 10, 11 plates, if you're putting 4 plates on the gym pin on a leg extension and you have small legs, you have to be assessing your training execution to see whether you have the muscle to be doing that amount of weight, right? You
I
could
always
have
say like it's
doing 4 or 5
yeah,
plays on a gym pin on preacher curls, right? None of them have good arms.
yeah. That's the thing. That's where people get distorted with the whole get strong to get big is you can get strong by using leverages. Like if you shoulder flex at the right time in a preacher curl, you can lift about 30% more.
Exactly.
If you swing your shoulders a bit on an incline, you can do the same thing. If you just press really hard on your feet, especially off your toes, and lift your butt a bit, you can press way more on incline or flat. If if you do like an oblique crunch while you pull, it's gonna make it a lot easier too. So like, there's so many factors in that, and man, I love what you said about training to your needs. And I think like, one big thing I think people make a mistake of is like, for example, like I like to give a rep range of 6 to 8, 10 to 12.
Hmm.
To me, that means first set 6 to 8, and then you back off 20 to 25%. If you're at the 6 rep, back down 25% because we don't want to hit the lower end. Because if you only drop 20% from 6, you're probably going to be in that 8 to 10 rep. You want to be in that 10 to 15, 10 to 12. And I think earning the right to progress your weights comes from owning a rep range. So
Hmm.
sometimes I might even slightly bring the weight back down, fix my execution, get back up to my 8 reps, then I can add weight when I've owned the rep range. Not be like, I got to 6 today. I feel pretty strong. Let's just go straight to next week. Now you know you're at 4 reps and you have to wait a few weeks to get back up to 8.
Hmm.
So it's super important to train to your needs and adjust accordingly. What do
Another
you find are the month? Yeah, continue,
Another
please.
thing about train to your needs is that people copy the way other people train. You see those people giving out full body programs online on TikTok, and just a bunch of kids just copying the program, right? You need to actually assess what you need in your training program before you do the training program, right? If you're tiny, you do not need to specialize your arms. You need to get bigger everywhere and not just focus on one area.
Well, going on to like this, like, what do you find are the most underrated muscles to develop that add to a physique? Maybe the muscles that people don't talk about enough.
Underrated muscle, in my opinion, adductors, the one you
Yeah.
just mentioned. I think people are starting to pick up on adductors now, but I think 2 years ago, even 2 years ago, I would start my less sessions with adductor, and people would just look at me like I'm crazy, right? Because back then it was that machine was the machine that only girls use. I think I remember people calling it the sus machine, right, or something like that, right? Because no male would do it. It's only been girls using the abductor because no one would do the abductor.
Yeah, what people forget is don't sleep on the dust machine because the dust machine happens to train one of the most important parts in your leg that shows your legs from the front and the back and adds so much density to your leg that building a huge amount of quads just won't do.
Yeah, and in my opinion, on side shots, they show a lot too. If you nail your side poses, the side legs, you'll see that it's one the hamstring of the outer leg squeezing against the adductor of the inner leg, right? If you do not have any adductor there, your hamstring would not pop. That's the main thing I noticed.
Wow, I've never noticed that, but now that you say it, it makes so much
Try to
sense.
flip the outer leg towards the inner leg.
Yeah,
If you do not have the adductor here, you pop.
I think people talk about this muscle, but man, erectors, you have a big set of erectors, you just look twice as big.
Exactly.
Honestly, just posterior, dude. Glutes, erectors, hamstring adductor, you have these muscles, you don't look like your average jack guy.
Mhm.
It adds so much depth and density to a physique. And if you look at the best physiques ever, they have crazy amounts of all the Ronnie Coleman.
Yeah, he has
Like,
water pipe for erectors.
yeah, like it's insane. And yeah, so I mean, what have been your favorite sources for training education outside your own experience?
So first thing first would be like Instagram, just watching other people train. I think people that is a pretty underrated one because I started out by just following people on Instagram and see the way
Yeah,
they
me too.
or before I even got to any member site, right? I used to follow when I first started to get into like serious training in 2021. The first guy I followed was AJ Morris.
Yeah, yeah, he's an
Yeah.
OG.
Yeah, so because before that, I've never seen anyone train as hard as him and using the same amount of weight as him. So on Instagram,
Yeah,
there's a lot of like guys that are like super underrated, but you won't see them on YouTube because they don't make YouTube videos.
yeah. I liked Nick Loft too for a minute. I always liked AJ.
Hmm.
I liked Jordan Peters. I like Kuba. I don't mind him. He's just not that strong. Like his upper body just doesn't seem to be that
You
strong.
have to watch his video before 2020. That's when he was actually pushing for it.
Yeah. I've always liked I mean Dorian, man. Like Dorian started this all. Dorian Yates. Like He's the father of this intelligent training.
Mm.
You know, like really engineering yourself a system that works and that you can troubleshoot. The first guy to do that was Dorian. So it's hard to say him, but on Instagram, I mean, I obviously I think podcasts help. I'm sure you've watched a good few podcasts yourself.
I th- I watch a lot when I'm like just getting steps in and stuff. I think I watch a lot of John Jewett and the J3U podcast. Yeah. Old ones AJ Morris used to do because they are a bit more relatable to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you know the team 3DMJ. They used to have a podcast as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And also Callum Team Pro Coach, he used to be the Physique Collective. They also had a podcast that was really good.
I used to follow a Josh Bridgman as well. And I used to watch his YouTube. Brightman goes to my gym, Joe Brightman. I've spoken to him two, three
Used to have
times.
this
Really cool.
podcast called Off the Cuff, right? Was that the name?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And
I discovered Josh Bridgman and Agent Morse at the same time. But Josh Bridgman used to make very good YouTube videos back then, so I used to watch that a lot.
you know, it's very interesting. A lot of these guys who are very intelligent about training, they actually stayed natural for quite a bit before hopping on enhancements. Like Josh competed a few times natural.
Hmm. He didn't hop on until he was almost 30 or late 20s at least.
Yeah, yeah. Even, you know, Bob Waterhouse?
Yep, the
He just
classic,
hopped
right?
on like 2, 3 years ago. He hopped on, yeah,
Yeah.
and he's almost like 40.
Do you know Jack Richardson?
Jack Richardson.
He placed top 10 at Prague this year.
I've seen his physique before, but I'm not too familiar with him. What about him?
He was natty about 2 or 3 years ago, and he was AJ Morris coached him when he was natty.
Okay, so going into coaching, have you ever worked with a coach yourself, or you completely self-coached this whole time?
I've had a brief stint with a friend, and my friend was coached by Nick Gloff,
Okay, cool.
but never like an official coach. He helped me with my first diet, and that's about it.
Okay, and I know you're coaching now, right? So how long have you been doing that?
So right now I have about 10 people bodybuilding that I have coached for about 7 to 8 month at this point. Right. So in beginning of last summer, I post a story saying that I'll coach people for free.
Are you
Back then,
still coaching people for free, or are you finally charging?
I started charging earlier this year for any of the people that
Okay, cool.
just came to me.
I have more questions about like the business side of things, but we can talk about that more off the podcast. But yeah, no, dude, awesome, man. Yeah. And
So
what are your
first,
plans? Yeah.
yeah. So I'm just gonna continue on with that a little bit. So first, about 30 people came to me through my DMs just because they used to follow me. But like when it's free, people tend to take it for granted, and they obviously do not have the
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
as
Yeah.
as
I
they
did the
would if
same
they
thing.
start to pay you. But eventually, about 10 people actually like do show the commitment, and they are on it every single week. And these are the same 10 people that I'm still coaching at this point, right? And
Did
also,
you, I assume you must have had a few clients where you're coaching for free and then they ended up continuing for money.
no, the ones I coach for free, they stay.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay. Good move, to be honest.
I want to keep it that way. And I'm also coaching a couple of guys on the Mac Master powerlifting team.
Yeah, I've seen a few tags. Yeah.
Yeah, but only for their diets.
Awesome, bro. Awesome. So what are your plans long term with coaching? Like, is it a side gig for you? Are you just going with the flow?
Definitely going with the flow, because I don't plan for it to be my main source of income slash my main career, because I am pursuing a degree in other things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, eventually maybe I can make a YouTube video like saying I quit my job, and I'm turning to online coaching 100%. Like,
Yeah.
those people post those YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Maybe one day, maybe one day.
I
My
wish you
main
that
goal is to
opportunity.
go with the flow. Whoever wants to join me, I'm like happy to. more than happy to help them. That's like my main motivation back then when I coached for free, right? I just want to help people and like get the results.
Yeah, there's something so fulfilling about teaching people and getting them results, but also getting them results they didn't even know they could achieve, because then they like actually start nailing stuff. They have a system they can abide by, and it's just so fulfilling to experience that yourself and pass that down to people.
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, also just finding out what works for them because I had to go through that myself. So, like, talking them through that would be like very good.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
think
And
people like attached to getting a lot of clients and also like making money and trying to make this their full-time job. You see those coaches that coaches to make money.
oh my God, bro, don't even get me started on these business coaches, bro. I know so many of these guys behind the scenes. A lot of these guys are scammers. They don't own the cars they're posting in. People in Dubai laugh at these people, bro. Like, they are not. You know what I say? If you could pay someone money to make more money, wouldn't we all be rich?
Exactly.
If it was that simple, like I have a client of mine who I'm coaching now, and I'm kind of like helping him out in like a mentorship type of sense because he wants to start a coaching business. So I'm like, let me help you, but I'm not going to charge you extra for that. I'm going to coach you as a client. You need any help, you have my direct access. But the reason I did this because I felt like an obligation because he told me he was about to pay like $5,000 deposit to one of these mentors. And it's like these mentors, all these coaches who coach coaches, they weren't even good coaches to begin with. That's why they're doing this, because their coaching doesn't sell.
See, I think this will never work in a long term. Like the clients you get would never
Mm-hmm.
be a long term client because you are coming from it from a standpoint of making more money and getting more leads through talking to other people instead of like having the main motivation from helping people.
Yeah, man. I mean,
You never have any long lasting clients. You have clients that
yeah.
sign up, pay for their first month and leave immediately.
Well, like for example, like most of Hani's clients don't pay him. Like he understands. Like sometimes the people you coach are an asset and they can elevate your reputation. Like when you coach crazy physiques, people associate you with crazy physiques. So it's very important that you don't just rinse people or look at it purely as a money thing, because the job is to get results. It's not to make money. It's to get results. And in turn, that makes you money.
Yeah, so I think if you come from it through and have the goal of helping people, you can never do too bad because you're always willing to learn and to communicate, etc. You know?
Yeah, 100%. And like, how has coaching shifted your own perspective in training? How has it
Uh,
opened your eyes, maybe even for your own training?
yeah, for sure. Honestly, just that everybody have their own needs, and you cannot just throw a program at them and tell them to do
Yeah.
that. That would never work.
Mm-hmm.
I usually ask them what they have in their gym and also what have they been running, and I try to modify that and ask them what do they enjoy from their old training program, right?
You just make it more efficient. Yeah.
I would never ask them to set up this single arm lat pull down on a cable if they do not have the cable access. If the cable is always busy, just do something else.
Yeah. 100%. I
But
mean,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, bro, as for today, that's almost everything. I mean, I don't want it to be too long. It's already been an hour and a half. But dude, it's been awesome speaking to you. We definitely have to get a session in together.
for sure.
And yeah, I'm gonna stop recording, but you have to stay on so it fully uploads. Yeah, but thank you for watching, everyone. This is episode 1 of The Muscle Galaxy concluded. Jason, thank you for showing up.
All right, my
Thank
pleasure.
you for providing a lot of knowledge. Honestly, my eyes were very open. I'm gonna rewatch this myself when I do my steps and probably take notes on a lot of the stuff you said. But dude, you're super smart guy, but super simple too, which is amazing. That's how you know someone's truly smart, is you just phrase it in such a simple way that anyone can digest it, and that's awesome.
My pleasure.
Yeah, no worries. Let me just stop recording this, and then let's see how the upload